Jahasa Bhimastam Drishva Sriyodarpatayo Pare Shivayamana Vyanga Rajna Krishna Modita.
Vertical translation, please repeat. Jahasa, laughed. Bhima, Tam, him. Drishva, seen. Striyaha, the women. Nripatayaha, kings. Apare, and others. Nivyamanaha, being checked. Api, even though. Anga, my dear Pariksha. Rajna, by the king Yudhishthira. Krishna, Lord Krishna. Anumoditaha, approved. Translation and purport of the followers of his divine grace. Abhay Charnari Vinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation, my dear Parikshit, Bhima laughed to see this, and so did the women, kings and others. King Yudhishthira tried to stop them, but Lord Krishna showed his approval. Please repeat. My dear Parikshit, Bhima laughed to see this, and so did the women, kings and others. King Yudhishthira tried to stop them, but Lord Krishna showed his approval. Srila Vishnu Chakravarti mentioned that King Yudhishthira tried to check the laughter by glancing at the women and Bhima, Lord Krishna. However, gave approval. Lord Krishna, however, gave approval with a gesture of his eyebrows. The Lord had come to the earth to remove the burden of wicked kings, and this incident was not unrelated to the Lord's purpose. Om Ajnanatimena Jnananjana Shalakya Chakshurummitamena Tasma Shri Guruve Namah Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitamena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vancha Kalpatarabhascha Kripa Sindhivyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namah Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestha Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharne Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschyata Deshikarne Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishnaya Vasudevaya, Devaki Nandanaya, Nanda Gopa Kumaraya, Govindaya Namo Namah. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
We're getting towards the end of this chapter, Duryodhana humiliated. So what we've read so far is during and after the Rajasuya Yajna, there was a great festivity, and Yudhishthira Maharaj was praised by who was present there, and he was glorified. Now after this glorification and Yudhishthira Maharaj being the sort of, he was being glorified by everyone, Duryodhana, he felt very angry, and he was already envious of the Pandavas, as we know, but this situation of seeing Yudhishthira, one whom he hates so much, seeing him being very successful and being glorified, he was enraged with anger. And as he was walking in this palace, so this palace, as we know, was made specifically for Yudhishthira Maharaj, but there was a section of this palace made by Mayadharma. He's a person, he creates illusions. And in that section of the palace, there was a place called Maya Sabha. Because Maya Sabha is a hall of illusion, so where everything looks something but actually different. For example, as it explained here, the hard floor looks actually water, or what it seems like a place of water is actually a hard floor, or something might look like a wall but it's actually a door, or it might be a door but it's actually a wall. So you can very quickly you can get confused. And as Duryodhana, he was very angry, he was carrying his sword, he was insulting the servants, and he was in an agitated mood. So he was not seeing things as they are. And as he was walking through, he was bewildered by the illusion created by this Maya Sabha. Now this is something like the conditioned soul is material world, where we get bewildered by the illusionary energy of Krishna. So when we say illusion, before we understand why the soul gets conditioned by this illusion energy, we have to understand that this material world, even though we say is the illusionary energy or so forth, it's actually real. because it is one of the subject matters of Bhagavad Gita, is Prakriti. Of course, the material world is temporary because it can manifest and unmanifest, but it is still real. Unlike the Advaita philosophy, where they say that Brahma Satyam, Jagan Mithya. They say that this Brahman is the absolute truth, the impersonal Brahman is the absolute truth, and they say that Jagan Mithya, this world is illusion. On top of that, they add one more, they say Jivo Brahmaiva Napara, which means this Jiva is none other than Brahman himself. That means we are all, one sense, we are God. Of course, Vaishnava philosophy, we reject it completely, all the three statements, because Brahman realization is only partial realization. You know, Brahmeti Paramatmeti Bhagavaniti Sabhyati, which means that Brahman realization is only partial. The full realization is to understand Krishna as not only Brahman, also Paramatma, but the ultimate form, the personality of Supreme Godhead. And Jiva is only part and parcel of Krishna. We are eternal servants. We are not not different from Brahman as they claim. And most importantly, they say Jagan Mithya. We say yes, this material world is real, except that it is temporary. Now, this illusion, when we say illusion, like how Duryodhana is being illusion, what does it mean? Illusion means that is something which appears, but it is not. Like it gives you an impression of something, but it's actually not. And probably in many classes and books, he gives two examples. One, he gives example of the rope and the snake. You know, when somebody sees a rope in the dark, he feels that it's a snake and gets scared. But it is actually a rope. But the rope is real, but he perceives it. There's an illusion that it seems like it's a snake. The other example Prabhupada gives is the mirage you find in a desert. The desert is real, but the perception that there is water and there is something to drink, that is an illusion. And very quickly the person comes under understanding that this was an illusion and he was mistaken. And so the conditioned souls are when they come into the material world is real, but when the soul gets conditioned in this here, you know, we come into the illusion energy. We become illusioned. Now there are many reasons for us becoming illusion, and we know that. You know, we hear it very constantly. So I'll just quickly say, I won't dwell too much into it because we know why we get illusion. The first one, the most important one, being this misidentification of the self. There are two parts to this. One is called the aham iti, aham amam. Aham iti means me, like I'm identifying with my body, I have a designation, I'm a man, woman, I'm American, Australian, Indian, I'm so-and-so, I'm a doctor, and I identify myself with the body. And everything I do is for the maintenance and the pleasure of this body. And then once I have looked after myself, then I extend it beyond myself, aham mama, which means mine now. So this is me, and now this belongs to me. Family, extended family, society, and so forth, and as Prabhupada explains, nationalism and so forth. And this is the misidentification of self. We get so misidentified with the self, there's actually an identity crisis we go through. Because we have completely forgotten the actual self in us. And we relate ourselves with this body and everything around us. So that is the first, the illusion we are under. And the second illusion we are under is mistaking that whatever is temporary is actually for real. So everything around us is actually temporary, whether it is wealth, fame, name, or material education, the relationship we have, the husband, wife, children, everything is there, is a transit, it's only transitory for this world. After this life, everything changes. So whatever we have, we think it's for real, it is permanent. But unfortunately, it's actually temporary. And this is explained very nicely by Chitraketu's son, Harshadoka, when we read Srimad Bhagavatam, when he's revived back from dead from Narad Muni. And Chitraketu says, I'm your father. And Harshadoka says, no, you're not my father. You're your father in this life. Previous life there was someone else. And next life there will be somebody else. So this lifetime you're my father, it doesn't mean that you are my eternal father. So this is mistaking the temporary to be for real or permanent. Then we have, other one is thinking of happiness, that happiness can be found apart from Krishna. This is a common issue we have, that we look for sense objects and we think that will give us happiness. And our whole life is spent endeavoring for achieving sense objects that will give us happiness. And very quickly we realize the more we try, the more it eludes us and we do not actually get happiness. And then there are two problems to this. One is that we are finding happiness in things which actually don't give us happiness. And then even though it doesn't give us happiness, we become too attached to it. And there's a twofold problem we have. And therefore Krishna says that the reason why we become is because of contemplating sense objects. Jayate visayan pumsaha sanjate supajayate sangha sanyate kama kama kodo vijayate. Where does it all start? The sense and sense objects interaction is natural. For example, I can see a woman can see a man. Because of our eyes, it is natural to see someone. But then when I contemplate that I've seen this person very attractive, and I contemplate on them, that's where the actual problem starts. The interaction between sense and sense objects, that is bound to happen as long as the material world. But the contemplation of it, the contemplation creates attachment. And attachment creates lust. And when the lust is not fulfilled, anger develops. It's all starting from that. And because of this contemplation and attachment, we get illusioned in this material world. And then the fourth and most important thing is that forgetting that Krishna is a source and he's a controller. That no matter how much Prabhupada has repeated this time and again in every class, somehow, and we understand it, but somehow in the corner of our mind, we fail to recognize it. That Krishna is a source and he's a supreme controller. Somehow in our mind, we think we're the controller. And that makes us illusion in this material world. So, how can we, is it possible to get out of this illusion? Because we're talking about that if we don't get out of the illusion, we are stuck here. So is it possible to get out? And how do we do it? That's a question. Firstly, we have to understand that as long as we are in this material world, we are bound by the three modes of material nature, the three gunas. Or we can also, gunas also mean ropes. We are tied down. And it's very difficult to cut through these ropes of gunas. And Krishna himself says, Devehesa gunamahi mama maya duratya. This energy of mind, Devehesa gunamahi, this energy of mind is very difficult to overcome. So Krishna is a creator and he himself is saying it is very difficult to overcome. So therefore, there's the only way we can get over this is by performing bhakti. Krishna himself says, Mam eva hi prapadyanti maya metam taraditi. But those who surrender to me, for them it's very easy to overcome this. Not only three modes of material nature, but also this illusion energy of Krishna is very easy to overcome. So, and so what we're reading here is Duryodhana, after he was going around, he fell into the water. And when he fell into the water, those who were present there, women, kings, and Bhima, they actually made fun of him. They laughed. And this, Yudhishthira Maharaj was not very happy. He with his glance, he was trying to tell them not to do it. And because he knew that by this act of them laughing at Duryodhana and humiliating him, it would only make Duryodhana's attitude towards them even worse. Duryodhana was already envious, and this would actually make him even more angry. So this is not going to help the cause. Now, Yudhishthira Maharaj, he is a representative of Dharma. And that's why we call him Dharmaraj also. And he knew that the mockery and humiliation of a person can plant the seed of dangerous hatred and revenge. And that is not a behavior of a cultured Kshatriya. We would understand that humiliating someone, even if they are the worst enemy, is not proper etiquette. And one should never make fun or look down upon a person who has fallen down, not only in material world, but also spiritual world. Very, very careful. Everybody goes through problems, everybody has their own baggages they are carrying, and so there is a tendency for us to follow. That is why we are in the material world. And so we should not make fun of them. It is, for example, a simple example is if you're having a disease and you go to a doctor, imagine the doctor is making fun of you. Oh, look, you've got a disease. That's why I'm coming to you for fixing it. So it's not proper etiquette to do that. And if someone comes to us and says that, look, I have this problem, I have a physical issue, our initial thought process, we sympathize with them. I feel sorry, please take care, we look after yourself. But then when we have this internal disease, we all have, anarthas we have, but somehow we tend to have a different position on that. It's very, very natural. The physical aspect, we have very compassion. We become very compassionate. Oh, I feel very sorry, how can I help? But then, internal one, we look down upon the person, or look our values. Somehow we become a judge. We become judgmental. Krishna is not judgmental. That's the best part. Krishna doesn't judge any of us. He knows that yes, you're all conditioned. You're going to go through this, and therefore, that I'm not going to judge you who you are, because there is an opportunity for you to somehow change. And therefore, he says in Bhagavad Gita, "Abhite Dudacharo bhajante mananaya." Even if you've done the most abominable thing, the most abominable could be defined anything, but very quickly you can become righteous. You can become a saint. So we can't judge anybody. Because then a mature person, he considers the future consequences, and he considers that unnecessary hostilities and enemies is not necessary. Because we understand, say someone is lying, how much of energy goes in maintaining that lie? Correct? If one is very truthful, very straightforward. Truth sometimes might be harsh, difficult to digest. But once they said the truth, that's it. You don't have to spend any more time. But if a person is lying, and to maintain the lie, he has to say many more lies. He has to fabricate so many stories. So a lot of energy goes in it. So similarly, if you have an enmity towards someone, or if you're humiliating someone, so much energy goes into that. It's very, very difficult to maintain. And we have limited energy. We have limited time. So why waste our energy on unnecessary things? So Prabhupada explains in Krishna book. It's very nice reflection for all of us. I'm not saying we do it, but I'm saying there is a subtle thought process in our head. There's a tendency that we might criticize or look down upon someone. And it may not be in a gross way, but there is a subtle way, we think. And Prabhupada says, laughing at someone's misfortune is a material fault and a sign of mode of passion ignorance. Yudhishthira stopping the laughter shows the Vaishnava quality of Ajata Shatru, one who does not create enemies. This is one of the good qualities of devotees, Ajata Shatru. He doesn't create enemies unnecessarily. So the four varnas we have, the Brahmana, the Kshatriya, the Vaishya, and Shudra, they have certain qualities they have to imbibe. Each varna is different. And these qualities are like the ornament for them. They have to have it. So the Brahmana qualities are this, Titishva Karunika. He's very forgiving. He's very tolerant. When I say tolerance, this is the internal tolerance. When somebody insults a Brahmana, just okay, that's fine. I will tolerate it. So that this forgiveness and internal tolerance is an ornament for Brahmana. And if he's not, if the person is getting angry all the time, he's very reactive, and he's not forgiving, that's not a good quality to have. And Kshatriya, what is the Kshatriya's quality is something very interesting. Kshatriya's quality, of course, is to look after the citizens, they are ruling. But most importantly, the ornament of a Kshatriya is to punish the miscreants. Now, this is a very difficult quality to have. To punish a miscreant, you need to be very tough. And so this is very important, because when you are maintaining, there will be majority of good people, there will also be miscreants. And to punish them is a very important role for Kshatriya. That's why the government builds prison houses. And just because the prison house is empty, they don't invite us, empty, please come and occupy. Because there will be miscreants. And therefore they have to punish them. We can't be compassionate to those people. And the Vaishyas, their ornament is to be frugal. They have to use the resources very nicely. They should not be wasteful. And Shudras, yes, they have to serve nicely without any expectations. So these are the ornaments of the four Varnas. But what about Vaishnava? Of course, we don't identify ourselves where the Varnas are, but we need to incorporate all of these qualities. We need to be forgiving, we need to be tolerant. And if a Vaishnava is in a leadership position or in an administrative position, he should have the ability to also punish the miscreants. If someone is disturbing, causing disturbance, should be able to handle it properly. Otherwise, it can cause disturbance to everybody else. And should also be frugal, use the resources of Krishna very nicely. And should have the mood of service. Very important. Always have the mood of service. That's why we say you're servant. We finish the sentence by saying your servant. And we have to understand that all of these qualities is the important. And Yudhishthira Maharaj, even though the Kshatriya, he has the ability to punish, but he knows when to punish and when to be forgiven and be tolerant. But if you don't do it on time, it can be a problem. So we read in history, I think, way back in 1191 AD, when India was ruled by many kings. And this Mughal ruler called Muhammad Ghori, he attacked India. And the king called Prithviraj Chauhan, he was very powerful, and he actually defeated Muhammad Ghori. He had the opportunity to punish him and kill him. But at that time, Prithviraj Chauhan took a view of, I will be compassionate. He let him go. Muhammad Ghori was insulted, like how Duryodhana was insulted here. He went. He became a more powerful person. He got a bigger army, came back and defeated Prithviraj Chauhan. He entered India. Then the rest is history. How these Mughal rulers came and they just plundered everything, and we lost so many good temples and literature. So sometimes we are very careful. Time, place, circumstances. We can't show compassion in the wrong place. And we have to show some compassion in other places. But that depends on the maturity of the place. But even though Yudhishthira Maharaj was trying to stop this damage, but his attempt to damage was too late because the damage was already done. And Duryodhana was deeply humiliated. And this incident was a turning point towards the Kurukshetra war. He was already angry, but this was the non-negotiable event which happened. That from here, there's no turning back. And Duryodhana made up a point that that's it. I'm not going to do anything for them. And even if there is any negotiation, the 5 villages which asked, he said, no, I'm not giving, not even the place where I can put a needle. Because he was so angry with this incident, he was humiliated in front of everybody. And he just could not forget it. So, and Yudhishthira Maharaj was trying to avoid it because he knew what is coming. It was too late. But then this change of events, something wonderful happened. It's explained the last word, Rajya Krishna Anumodita. But Krishna has different plans altogether. Krishna Anumodita means he actually showed his approval. No, please laugh. This is just amazing. We just talked about a Vaishnava etiquette, we just talked about good qualities of a Kshatriya, compassion, don't do all this. But Krishna had a completely different plan altogether. And he says, no, you do it. Because, and as it says here, the Lord had come to the earth to remove the burden of wicked kings. And this incident was not unrelated to the Lord's purpose. The Lord had a purpose. And he is a catalyst. He wanted 640 million people to assemble in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, fight amongst themselves. Krishna did not do anything. He was just watching. And they fought among themselves. And everything finished. And so, Krishna actually approved it. Much to the surprise of Yudhishthira Maharaj. Why? Is because Krishna is absolute truth. And his plan overrides everything. It overrides religiosity, what we call as a morality, or what we call as the Vaishnava etiquette. All of the things which we say here, Krishna's plan overrides all of that. And that's why Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Sarva Dharma Pariticha Mam Ekam Sharanam. Abandon everything. All type of dharmas, whatever the so-called religiosity you call, just abandon it. Surrender to me. And somehow, like Yudhishthira Maharaj, he was holding on to that, I am representative of Dharma, I should not tell a lie, I should be like this. But Krishna's plan is the ultimate one. When Krishna says something, it overrides everything. And Krishna's plan has a method. Now here we can't understand this. By our faulties, and we can't understand why Krishna is doing that at this point in time. If we take a snapshot of Duryodhana falling and being humiliated, people laughing, and Krishna approving. If you look at that particular incident, it will be very bewildering to us. We can't understand it. But Krishna has a method. But Krishna's plan takes a certain amount of time. But the problem is we don't understand it. And when, as an example, when demigods, when they were harassed by Hiranyakashipu, they went to the Lord and they prayed to the Lord. And the Lord said, Kalam Tavat Pratisthana, which means the Lord said, yes, I will come, but please wait. Be patient, I will come. Now, this instruction of Krishna is a problem for us. Please wait. Because we don't have patience, especially in this day and age where everything is fast. The Wi-Fi is fast, food is fast. solution also to be fast. And when Krishna's plan works in his own way. And we are not ready to wait. And that is the hardest thing for a devotee, is that Krishna operates in his own schedule, and there are two problems with that. When Krishna operates in his own schedule, there are two problems we face. The first one is Krishna's schedule does not match with our schedule. We have our own schedule, but Krishna's plan is different. It doesn't match with us, and therefore we are not patient. But even if we are patient, we are ready to wait if we know what the plan is. But Krishna doesn't tell us what his plans are. He's just there. And we have to wait and wait and wait for something to happen. And so that can sometimes frustrate us. And that can shake our faith also. And so sometimes Krishna's plan can be instant. Sometimes it can take a lifelong time. Either way, we have no control. Do we have any control? We have no control. As I was just listening to Gaur Gopal Das, the lecture, which I showed in the youth session, he was talking about the flight taking off. And the air hostess said to him that you're a monk, aren't you? He said, yes. So please pray for us to have a nice takeoff. I said, but what about landing then? He said, well, landing is not in our control, so pray for that also. So he was explaining to us the taking off of the aeroplane is not in our control. The landing of the aeroplane is not in our control. And the disturbance, the turbulences which we go through during the flight is also not in our control. The turbulence or the disturbance we go through in our life. But what we can do during the flight is in our control, the choice we have. And he was explaining some people sleep, some people watch movies, some people snack on something, or some people can read Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita. The choice is ours. But what happens during the course of this journey is not in our control. But within that, we can make certain choices. So similarly, in the course of our life, everything's happening around us, we have no control. Because Krishna has a plan. But we can only make choice that we can be patient. We can accept Krishna's plan. And we have to understand that Krishna is helping us. He's protecting us. Every day, every hour, every minute, every second is protecting us. The only problem is that we don't understand it. Krishna is keeping up his promise all the time. That's why he's called Achyuta, infallible. He doesn't ever not fulfill his promise. It is us who don't fulfill our end of the promise. And so we become very selective. And we have selective faith in Krishna. We have selective faith in devotional service. And so then what happens is that our faith in Krishna becomes very shaky. The real faith in Krishna comes when we encounter some difficulties. In a provocating situations, that's when our true self comes out. Here you're reading about Duryodhana, externally might be good, but when there's a provoking situation, he gets provocated, the anger comes out. So our true self is not when everything is going very nicely. They're all nice. Our true self comes out when there's a provocating situation. That's when we realize who we really are. And that's something for us to take with us and understand, am I this person? Or should I be a better person than this? So Krishna's plan it works, it has its own method, and we have to simply understand that accepting Krishna's plan is true surrender. And surrender to Krishna means that we accept his plans. My plans don't work, Krishna's plans always works, and it is best for me. And that is very important. I did mention this, but I want to repeat again just for the sake of this particular subject. There is a Christian song called Footprints in the Sand. I'm not sure how many of you have heard this. Footprints in the Sand. It's a very beautiful song. I'm not going to sing, but I'll just recite it for you. I'll just read it for you. So it says this: one night, I dreamt a dream. As I was walking along the beach with my Lord, across the dark sky, flashed scenes of my life. For each scene, I noticed two sets of footprints in the sand, one belonging to me and one belonging to my Lord. After the last scene of my life flashed before me, I looked back at the footprints in the sand. I noticed that many times along the path of my life, especially at the very lowest and the saddest time of my life, there was only one set of footprints. This really troubled me. So I asked the Lord about it. I asked the Lord about it. Lord, you said once that if I decide to follow you, you would walk with me all the way. But I noticed that during the saddest and the most troublesome time of my life, there was only one set of footprints. I don't understand why, that when I needed you the most, you would leave me. So that's what we think in our mind. It resonates with us. The Lord whispered. The Lord whispered and said, my precious child, I love you and will never leave you. Never ever during your trials and testings that I will left you. When you saw only one set of footprints, it was not yours, it was mine, it was I who carried you. So, but we fail to see that. We fail to see Krishna's protection towards us. And so we react, and we get upset, and we lose faith in Krishna. But Krishna consciousness is all about reinstilling that faith in Krishna. It's all about establishing that Krishna's plan works. We just have to be patient. We just have to be patient. It works. And so I was just reading Chaitanya Charan Prabhu's books, and one of the beautiful quote, which really touched me and resonates, is that because we have a tendency to make mistakes, correct? Because to err is human. And we make mistakes. We made mistakes in the past. We are making mistakes now, and we'll make mistakes in the future. And that is a tendency we have. Even though we are established properly in Krishna consciousness, we have knowledge, but we still have the tendency to make mistakes. That is bound to happen. But you're saying that our mistakes are not Krishna's plans. But Krishna's plan accommodates our mistakes. That we have to understand. So an example he gives is the GPS. So when you put a GPS and I want to go from my house to the temple, and the GPS gives you a particular route. Okay, this is how you should go. The shortest route it takes you. But then you decide to take a detour and you take somewhere else. And the GPS then reroutes you. Okay, you've taken a detour, you made a mistake apparently, but I'm going to give you another alternate back to your destination. And then we took another detour and we take another detour. The GPS doesn't get fed up and say, you stupid person, why are you doing this? I'm fed up of giving you directions. It continues, the GPS has been designed in such a way that it can accommodate the mistakes we make. And it can reroute us back to our proper destination. So similarly, we are bound to make mistakes, but Krishna's plan accommodates our mistakes. And therefore, he's constantly rerouting us back to the proper destination. We just have to stick to the plan. And we'll constantly deviate from it. But the plan will always bring us back. As Mukalesh Prabhu always said, that a devotee takes the process of bhakti, and then he goes on, he does it very nicely, but then he gets very complacent, and then he starts, it's okay, and then he starts adopting shortcuts. And there's a 1% deviation. That 1% deviation creates another 1%. It goes on, and after some time he realizes, this is the path I was supposed to take, I'm over here now. Where have I come? Realizes, oh my God, I'm supposed to be here, I'm over here. And he undertakes a rectificatory process, and then while he's doing that, he again deviates and goes somewhere else. It keeps on going, but eventually he realizes, and it happens with all of us. But we have to understand that sticking to the process, no matter how much we deviate, will eventually come back. And therefore, we can say that everything is happening by Krishna's plan, and so we just have to stick to it. But then we say, oh, that's okay, fine. If everything happened in Krishna's plan, then what happens when we make mistakes deliberately, like if I commit a murder, or if I become intoxicated with alcohol and do something? What happens then? Is it also Krishna's plan? That becomes oversimplification. Because that's an oversimplification of reality. Because Krishna says that if you're doing something deliberately, then you face consequences of it. When, because of our conditioning, we have a tendency to make mistakes, and Krishna's plan can accommodate. But if you're deliberately making mistakes again and again, then you have to face consequences for it. And Krishna says very clearly in 16th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, one should understand what is duty and what is not duty by following the regulations of scripture. One of the key things we have to understand is that the ignorance is not an excuse. That's the one thing we learned in law. The first thing we learned in law is that ignorance is not an excuse. One cannot say that, well, I haven't read scripture, so I don't know what this. One should be aware of what human life should be, and therefore whatever encompasses what right and wrong we should be aware of. And that we get from scriptures. Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam. So one cannot claim that he is ignorant. And so it takes one to have a great faith and stick to the process. When Prabhupada was in Vrindavan, when he was asked to go to, he was instructed by his spiritual master to go to the US. Many times he wanted to follow his spiritual master's order, but he was very worried. How was he going to fulfill the instruction? And sometimes the faith in him would be, I'm struggling, I'm trying, but I can see no means of going. I see no means of being successful. And every time he would refer to that one verse in Bhagavad Gita, Vyavasayatmika buddhi ekehe kurunam, bhushakaya anantascha buddhyo vyavasayinam. One who's resolute in purpose. And Prabhupada says unflinching faith. Unflinching faith means he has complete faith in Krishna's plan. Like how Prahlad had unflinching faith in the Lord. That if you throw me from the cliff of the mountain, or if you throw me under the feet of an elephant, I have faith in Krishna. And not once he was deterred or he had any question in him. And if you had asked Prahlad, that you've gone through so many difficulties, he said, what difficulties? I've had no difficulties at all. I'm actually living a very nice life because Krishna's protecting me all the time. So that level of maturity comes with, when you're performing bhakti, and unflinching faith will give you, that level of conviction that Krishna is supreme controller and his plan is ultimate. And I just want to finish off with a story. We have 10 minutes in the book, I can finish it. This story is about Srila Prabhupada. And Prabhupada, as we know, today is the day when he departed to the US. He boarded the Jaladuta, went to the US, and that is a historic day for not only Srila Prabhupada, for all of us. If Prabhupada had decided not to board the Jaladuta, we would not be sitting here. We would probably be sleeping or wasting our time somewhere. So this particular incident was explained by Pujari in Mayapur, and the Advaita Acharya's house, or Advaita Acharya's bhavan. So what this Pujari explains is that this is between 1940 and 1950, that he would, this Pujari, there's a temple, there's a mandir behind the bhavan, and he would do service there. And Srila Prabhupada, he noticed, he didn't know about Srila Prabhupada at that time, so he said he would notice that a Grihastha Bengali devotee used to come to the temple quite regularly. He would come every weekend, every month, he would come there. He would be dressed in white khadi dhoti and kurta. He would always come alone. He would sit in the back of the temple without speaking a word. And he would chant Hare Krishna on his mala very quietly and very deeply. He would sit there in one place and he would just be chanting. And he noticed that this devotee came regularly, and he would notice that when he's chanting, his eyes would be full of tears and his voice would choke up. He would not even be able to chant Hare Krishna properly. His eyes would be full of tears. And he noticed it happened for a significant amount of time. This Bengali devotee would come, he would be chanting, he would not say a word. Every time he leaves, he would tell the Pujari, thank you for accommodating me, and he would leave. And this Pujari also didn't ask any question. He said this person comes very, very diligently, very sincerely comes, he chants and goes, he didn't want to disturb, so he didn't ask any question. But then this person didn't come for a very, very long time. He didn't come for a very, very long time. Until the date, August 1965. He saw that exactly after 60 years, 60 years now, but he distinctly remembers that in August 1965, he saw a saffron-clad sannyasi. He came there, went to the same spot, sat exactly the same place in the back of the temple, and he immediately recognized this is the old friend. Earlier he was wearing white dhoti, and now he's wearing a saffron cloth. But he was in the same place, he was having a standing bag, he was chanting, his eyes was closed, he was completely concentrated in his devotion, and yet again, his eyes were full of tears. But this time, he noticed that he was not just in tears, he was actually crying. And his crying was even more intense than what it was before. After several hours of seeing this person sitting there and crying and chanting, he saw this person get up, come towards him. He said, thank you very much for accommodating. this time he could not hold it. He said, please, can I ask you, who are you? You came for several months before and you took a long break and you come here. Who are you and what are you doing? And this is what he said. I'm just going to read it because I just don't want to misinterpret. This time he asked, who are you? He replied, my name is Abhay Charanaravinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami. I am an unworthy disciple of His Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, my divine spiritual master. I have been coming here for such a long time because my Gurudev has given me an impossible mission. His desire was for me to go across the ocean to the Western countries and spread the sublime teaching of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. There are countless souls who have never heard of Sri Radha and Krishna, and so they are suffering greatly. I do not know if this mission will be successful or not. So I've come here to the special house of Sri Advaita Acharya, where Nityananda Prabhu and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would gather together to plan the Sankirtan movement. It was here that they launched the inundation of love of God that swept all of India and continues to this day. Thus I've been praying very earnestly here that they will give me all the mercy, that somehow they will empower me and guide me. I want to satisfy my Gurudev's desire, but I am feeling greatly unqualified to do this. Tomorrow I am leaving for Calcutta to go upon a ship across the ocean to America. I do not know what will befall me there, but I am praying most earnestly for help. And later, and then Srila Prabhupada was in tears when he said it, and the Pujari could also not hold his tears. He was very touched by the interaction with Srila Prabhupada. And the Pujari continued, but after several years in the 1980s, when Westerners were coming to India, and one Westerner came to this temple and he brought a book called Back to Godhead. And somehow he got hold of that book, Pujari got hold of the book, and he was scrolling through it. He saw none other than Srila Prabhupada's picture. And when he was talking to the Western devotee, he said how this Krishna consciousness spread all across the world and how successful it has become. This Pujari became very, very happy. And he became so happy, he went in front of the deities and he profusely cried that how a devotee who had literally nothing with him, he only had faith, and he had this one instruction of his spiritual master to carry with him, and he begged for the mercy, and how he has transformed the entire world, and he brought everybody into the family of Krishna consciousness. So on this very special day when Srila Prabhupada has undertaken this great journey to the West, where he went through so many difficulties, he carried with him Srimad Bhagavatam sets. It was explained that when he went, he didn't even know what kind of food he was going to get. So when one of them asked in Calcutta, what are you going to do? He said, it's a meat-eating country. He said, it's okay, I will live on boiled potatoes. I don't know what is going to happen, but I'm just going to survive. And so it's such a very inspiring journey for all of us, that if we stick to this, the process, if we understand that Krishna has a greater plan, we might fall, and again, like a child, 1-year-old child falls and gets up, falls and gets up, and the mother just watches until the child becomes very successful. Not only walks, he runs. So when Krishna is watching us, he is our well-wisher, Suhul, and we just have to stick to the process. So just to recap, today we read about how Duryodhana was humiliated by falling into this water, and how whoever was present there, including Bhima, they made fun of him. Yudhishthira wasn't happy because he was trying to show etiquette. He knew what is going to come, and he was trying to avoid the situation, but the damage is already done. But Krishna's approval was there, because Krishna had a greater plan. Because he wanted this Kuruksheta war to happen. And most importantly, today is a very auspicious day of Srila Prabhupada boarding the ship to the US. So on this note, I'll end here. Please, if you have any questions, comments, or corrections, please. Krishna has given us he's given us minute independence called free will. And so we have the choice to use the free will. Either on a Saturday morning we can be in the temple, or we can be in the house sleeping or wasting our time. The choice is ours. And Krishna does not interfere with that free will of ours. Not only in this material world, he doesn't interfere in the spiritual world. And because he doesn't interfere, and we have misused free will, and we have fallen from the spiritual world to this material world. So this minute independence we have is an example of how in the house, you have independence in the house. Correct? You can sleep on the floor, you can do whatever you want, you can, in that little space, you can get the freedom. But once you step out of the house, you come under the jurisdiction of the council. You can't sleep on the road because there will be cars parking. That becomes illegal. You can't do things outside your house. But within the space of your house, you do what you want. So similarly, every soul has got limited minute independence, and they have a choice. So we can use it properly in Krishna's service, or we can misuse it. But Krishna does not interfere with it. Krishna has a plan. He has created the whole thing. But within that, he has given more independence. That is correct. This is Krishna's plan. Not even a blade of grass moves without Krishna's mercy. But as living entities, we have this mind of independence. And we have the choice. If you take a snapshot of a particular incident, it almost looks like it is unfair. But then if you expand the scope, and you see ultimately who won? Pandavas won. And that's why Bhagavad Gita finishes off, Yatra Yogeshwara Krishna, Yatra Partadantara, Tatra Shri Vijaya Bhuti Durvajiti Mati. Where there is Krishna, the Yogeshwara, and where there is a devotee like Arjuna, there will always be victory, there will be morality, there will be abundance. But if you take a snapshot, you might look, oh, this is not fair. That's why we need to understand Krishna's plan. And we as living entities, conditioned soul, we don't understand. That's where do we refer? This is Sadhu, Shastra, and Guru. We refer back and say, I don't understand. How it may be explained. So that's how it works. Yes, Krishna, of course, the name, Yudhishthira, in one sense, Yudhishthira also did not call out to Krishna at the time. So he thought, and we have to understand, Yudhishthira Maharaj, there's a misconception that he was a gambler and he was addicted to gambling. It's not correct. Yudhishthira Maharaj never liked gambling. But he was given instruction by Dhritarashtra to do. He was just following that. He knew all along what was going to happen. He knew that by gambling he will be cheated. He was going to lose everything. Yet he did it. He knew there was a Krishna's plan, but he did it. Yes.
Reading Srimad Bhagavatam at home on our own, that means can be misleading, because when you read the translation, I thought the same thing. How did Krishna approve the insult of a guest in our own house? And but we are encouraging people to read at home, because not everyone can come to the class sessions. So
Understand what is the actual meaning behind this. So purport is very, very important, especially those, we are sitting in the asas and we have to do the translation and the purport. The purport gives the right perspective of the translation. And that's why when we read this, Krishna gives approval. But read the purport, it says that the Lord had a higher plan behind this. And then you realize, okay, Krishna had a plan. And therefore, even though it seems that Krishna is approving something which doesn't seem right, but there was a different plan, there's a higher plan. And so we sort of reconcile that. And of course, you read the purport, even if you don't understand the purport, then we have devotees whom we can ask. Of course, attending classes is important. Hearing in association of devotees is very good. So yes, there are different ways we can understand. But remember, no matter how many times you read, we still won't get it. And repeatedly you read, every time you read, it's new realizations you get. As you read, say you read first canto Srimad Bhagavatam. After when you read again, you mature in your bhakti, your realization will be better. And again you read after 2 years, or after later, again your realization will be greater. So So it comes because the knowledge is revealed through the heart. And your realization comes repeatedly reading again and again. But you read systematically. Many times we read in a manner that we want to return 10 verses and I want to finish a quarter. But we have to read in a manner that, first pray before we take up Srimad Bhagavatam. Pray that please help me understand this. And if you're very, very sincere, Krishna will reveal that through the heart. But we get realization, we read it and we can, oh, this is what Krishna is saying. But we have to be careful also, sometimes we read, we seem to pray, we might speculate also. So then we have to seek help of Vaishnavas.
When you so repeatedly said in the class, we don't identify with the body. But that's the biggest problem for parents with young kids today at school. If they are taught you don't identify, like boy, you're not a boy, you can be anything. That's the big problem. And if they come to the class, if the young kids come to the class or read, well, then that reinforces what they are taught at school, that you're not a boy, you can be anything. And
See,
then the problem for the parents is like, you are a boy man, or you are a girl. So it's not just, we hear that a lot.
but there's a big difference though. What you're taught in school is we are talking about the external body as a boy, gender is only 2 male and female, but they have, I don't know how many, 70, 80 genders now, binary, non-binary and so forth. That is still identifying with the external body. What we are teaching is we're going beyond that. We're talking about the spirit soul we're talking about. Yes, the spirit soul has a body, and the body can be male, female, whatever. But we are saying there is something beyond that. We are just going to the proper understanding. Otherwise, this body, if you are going to spend time with this body, which is just temporary, and we get so attached to this body. And that's where the problem starts, the attachment and so forth. And that's why when we go to the problem, we just don't reconcile things properly. But the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, when it starts with Krishna saying, talks about soul straight away, because Arjuna was identifying with the body, I'm going to kill these bodies. He says, you're not killing the body, the soul is permanent. This body is temporary. So what we're learning here is not what they're teaching there, that's totally different, but we are going deeper here. Of course, for young children, it's difficult to reconcile that. So we have to explain in a manner they understand. But what they're teaching out there is quite dangerous right now, that's my opinion. But it's very dangerous. I'll ask Adi Pushpa if you have any corrections.
To your earlier point about Bhagavatam, unique teachers. In any field, not necessarily medicine or academic, it's Bhagavatam also unique teachers. Some of this is not emphasized. Because whatever you read, it's just very different. The second point, there are three statements. You're only catching on to the first statement, this down of this body. Following Prabhupada may translates the Dharma of this body. Right, we teach that. Then we say, I am spirit soul. Not this body. We don't finish there. Spirit soul, the body and the soul. And then last point here, part and parcel of Krishna is serving church. Part and parcel of Krishna. So that way, that material identification in schools, because the soul is neutral anyway, neither according to Christians. And so we are talking a different about. Maybe misunderstood here, but not this body, spiritual form of Krishna. Then it's complete. And then they want to take up devotional service, then they will understand.
Thank you, Prabhu. Ganashana Bhagavatam ki.
Yeah.